Hello, everyone. My name is Jiyook Kim. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me here and to share my study. So before starting today's presentation, I'd like to introduce myself more briefly. So I studied geosystem engineering during my undergraduate school, and I majored energy economics and policy during my graduate school. So after receiving my PhD degree, I joined the Korea Energy Economics Institute. So I think that my major is at the intersection of engineering and economics and policy. So last year, I joined the KAIST, and I'm leading the lab titled as Energy Technology and Policy Lab. So in my lab, working with 4 students, we study multiple issues regarding in the energy policy domain, including electricity market, energy efficiency, and energy regulation. So yeah, that is my brief background. So okay, let me move on to today's presentation. The presentation that I want to give you today is titled as Energy Efficiency Gap and Operational Risk in Manufacturing. So this work is supported by World Bank locally. So, and this is a joint study with Professor Seongjun Jung at the UTK. So maybe I've heard all of you may be interested, and some of you may be very familiar with the issue with energy efficiency, or some of you not. So, okay, that's very good thing. So let's just start today's presentation.
By the way, one of our first school at KAIST is a member of our steering committee of the CSDLAP.
Yeah,
right?
Professor Sang Min-shin.
Right, and also your dean.
Jiyook, yes.
Yeah. Right, so both, right? Okay, all right.
Oh, I have to introduce my school.
Yeah, sure.
I'm at the KAIST Graduate School of Green Growth and Sustainability, very long name. So our mission is to find a feasible solutions for fighting with climate crisis and to make our Earth better place. So a lot of professors and students are working and studying together to provide a good solution for the Earth. So Professor Ji Young and Professor Sang Min-shin is a member of this lab, as I was told by the Professor Jung.
Yeah, and both of them actually are Stanford alumni.
Yeah.
So there is a Stanford club there. Right.
So this study is basically about the energy efficiency. So what is energy efficiency? Many of you heard of many times about energy efficiency, but I guess you are not actually familiar with that kind of energy efficiency. So energy efficiency help us to use energy service with the reduced amount of energy consumption. So it is very important thing to achieve the carbon reduction in a cost-effective way. So energy efficiency has been paid a lot of attention since the 1970s because there was a historical event in the 1970s. What was that?
Oil shock.
Yeah, due to the oil shock, the importance of energy efficiency has been paid a lot of attention. And recently, the importance of the energy efficiency rising up again because we have to fight with climate crisis, and it has been considered as one of the most cost-effective ways to fight with climate issues. However, the potential of energy efficiency to support decarbonization is underestimated and overlooked relative to more extensive and intensive actions. So we pay a lot of attention to developing new technologies like hydrogen and negative carbon emissions or electrification. They are very expensive and challenging technologies. However, energy efficiency technologies are relatively cheaper than those technologies. However, they have not paid enough attention compared to their huge potential. So especially the slow rate of energy efficiency improvement issue is a serious issue in the manufacturing sectors. So many scholars have been thinking about what is the reason behind the slow rate of energy efficiency improvement. So there is a terminology that the gap between the ideal level of energy efficiency and the actual level of energy efficiency. So we call it energy efficiency gap. So energy efficiency gap refers to the situation that where firms do not adopt energy efficient practices and technologies despite their potential benefits. So what is energy efficiency gap? I want to give you some simple example. Imagine that you are a plant operator. So you know that if you replace your current boilers or other kind of equipment with energy efficient one, you can recover your investment cost within a couple of years because you can save your electricity bill by replacing your current equipment with a better one. However, many plant operators or many plant owners are reluctant to replace their equipment with better one. So energy efficiency gap basically illustrates this phenomena. We know that energy efficiency can save us money and can help us to recover the investment cost within 3 or 4 years. However, they do not invest in. So the energy efficiency gap is a terminology to describe that kind of situation. So a lot of scholars have investigated what kind of factors that actually cause the energy efficiency gap. So a lot of factors have been discussed, like imperfect information, hidden cost, risk, limited access to capital, split incentives, and bound rationalities. So a lot of actually academic work has been presented. You can see that there is in the table shown this in this slide. So the factors causing energy efficiency gap can be categorized into 4 categories: economic factors, information factors, behavior factors, and urbanization and other factors. So economic factors refers to such factors that basically we don't have any money, we don't have enough money to invest in energy efficiency, and we are worrying about, although we know that it is economically feasible, however, we need to use our resource to the other kind of things, which is in the priority length. So payback period, return on investment, initial cost, energy saving, energy price, public financing, and access to capital has been identified as the factors that cause energy efficiency gap. That means that the investors prefers investment which can recover their investment cost in a short period, and they prefer the investment with large energy saving, and larger return on investment. However, some kind of energy efficiency investments are less attractive in terms of those economic factors. So economic factors, they are pretty investigated, especially in terms of empirical evidence. So a lot of empirical evidence has been provided regarding explaining how those economic factors cause energy efficiency gap. And information factors are very important source for energy efficiency gap. So if you don't know how to improve your energy efficiency, you cannot implement that kind of measure. That is the basic idea behind the information barrier. So lots of studies had pointed out that, okay, we have to provide a better information in an easier way to improve energy efficiency, especially in the industrial sector. So regarding the information factors, the empirical evidence plenty of empirical evidences are provided. However, when you think about the urbanization and other factors, the empirical evidence I don't know how to say it. That there lacks of empirical evidence about this explaining the impact of urbanization factors on energy efficiency gap. Their relations are usually discussed based on the theoretical explanation. But however, if you run the plant, or if you are the plant operator, you may worry about if you have to replace your current equipment with other one, you may worry about the production disruption, quality changes, and other things. So those organization and the operational factor actually can influence the energy efficient behavior. However, the studies investigating those issues are relatively limited compared to the other literature on economic and informational factors.
Yes. Can I make an intervention to make our seminar more interesting? So I think first of all, after this, and then Professor, if you explain to the students about why you are mentioning about the firms and others, because they might think about the implementation of NDC and then how that angle comes. I know where it comes from, but it might be helpful for the students to better understand your presentation. Also, in addition, in our lab, one of the main reasons why I like scholars like you who are doing interdisciplinary study, and then we also do that. And then in our lab, depending on their interest, we try to combine not only quantitative, but the qualitative studies as well. So from this point of view, if we would bring this to the angle of, say, implementation of the Paris Agreement at the state level, national level, and also international level, and then would it be necessary, or have you ever felt that, governance and then institutional aspect of the issues may need to be added? This is one of the frequent factors that I found out of the very wonderful studies from the economists and then the scientists. Right. So we already think that, scientists usually say, oh, I got a great idea, but nothing has happened. I understand why, because of the governance and institutional matters. Okay. So my question, very simple, is, isn't there any way in your field to incorporate this type of approach? I think even the KAIST, your school, has been, very well situated in doing this, even though you have a, Dr. Shim, who has a pretty much a similar flavor of mine. So have you ever thought about it, or have you ever felt that it is necessary maybe in the future, because you are listing the very important aspects? So that's my quick question. Okay, so actually I thought that you gave me two questions. So the first question briefly, why I am interested in fund perspective instead of regarding some government issue. So, and you know that the governance is very important to achieve the net zero pathway. Actually, the government has implemented a lot of policy actions to reduce carbon emission, especially focused on the power sector. However, the power sector is, I think, a relatively easier option to be implemented because there is a few players. The number of players are limited in power sector. So it is relatively easy to change the power generation mix and to reduce carbon emission in power sector. However, to achieve a net zero pathway, not only the power sector, in addition to the power sector, all kinds of economic actors should pay attention and they try to reduce the carbon emission in their everyday lives. However, changing fund level behavior, changing individual level behavior is very, very difficult in terms of policy. Imagine that someday government imagine that if the government introduce that kind of measure, that, okay, you cannot purchase that kind of, like, you cannot, from now on, you cannot purchase a gasoline or diesel vehicle. You have to purchase electric vehicle only, or there is other option. You can purchase the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. Then many people will be angry, right? Because we live in a free country. So that's what investigating funds behavior and individual behaviors are important. If we are really want to change their behavior to achieve the net zero pathway. So I want to provide that kind of policy implication. Okay,
we know that it is very important to change some behavior. Then
Mm,
how we can change them and what is more efficient way
mm,
to change their behavior and to adapt or to change their behavior into the environmental friendly way. That is one of my key question. And it is actually my core question when I working, since I have joined the Korea Energy Economics Institute. So at the Korea Energy Institute, at KEEI, I led my team. I was a team leader in charge of energy efficiency and energy demand management. So the most frequent, the question I receive most frequently from the government is that, okay, we know that energy efficiency is important. We know that energy efficiency is cost effective, but we don't know how to make people adopt energy efficient measures voluntarily. The government has paid a lot of financial incentive to make people adopt energy efficient measures. And the government has implemented a lot of information actually to change people's behavior. But we know that those measures were not enough. So that was one of the key motivation of my study. So
if I may,
Yeah.
sorry. Can I be a little bit more provocative? So when I looked at literature about energy efficiency, many of them are from the economic area,
Yes, indeed.
right? And it's the microeconomics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Because we care about
is the study subject for the microeconomics,
Yeah.
right? And then here, microeconomics focus has been on how to deal with issues at the farm level,
yeah.
right? So I have seen a lot of literature talking about that. And then naturally, there is no way for the governments to know that because all these discussions are shared largely with say, consulting firms for the private sector.
Yeah.
But this study has not been integrated into the another policy studies at the
Yes,
governmental level.
Yeah.
So that's why the government always asks experts like you how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So then I liked it. And that's why I mentioned that the governance and institutional matters needs to be integrated. But this is what I found.
Yeah.
Okay. At the economics, even among the economic specialists, they also needs to know the sort of more like macro and then institutional level.
Yes.
And then because this will create a situation where there is a detachment between what the farm level activities needs to be done and then what the government policy needs to be developed and implemented.
Yes.
There is no linkage. That's why usually in Korea, especially governments, because they have no way actually to make this important issue as a part of their core work. They always simply ask the firms and the private sector, what can we do for you?
Yes,
right?
indeed.
So isn't there any way, this is my question, isn't there any way from the microeconomics point of view actually to address or combine this with, I know the cozy theorem and others are a little bit about it, but in a way to mainstream this work at the governmental level?
Yes. So
What do you think?
actually, the thing that the Professor Zhang has pointed out that was the thing I wanted to deliver finally through my study, and I thought that this study was supported by World Bank. So World Bank tried to find some valuable policy recommendation to the developing countries. So they supported our study. So I will talk about the policy implication later in my slide, but I want to briefly mention the policy implication is that we have to sophisticate our current policy programs for farm level energy efficiency. So as I mentioned that many governments have financially supported energy efficiency improvement for farms and individuals, and many governments has provided information for improving energy efficiency. However, there is a loop. And our conclusion provides some insights that, okay, we can maybe modify or we can improve our current policy programs for supporting firms like removing operational barrier in adopting energy efficiency. So currently, many government program has been designed to hedging their risk in terms of energy savings. So if you imagine that you are plant owner or operator, so you now replace your current equipment with new one like boilers, but you may not recover your investment cost within the expected period. It may require more time than you expected. So that kind of risk, actually, the government program provide some program. The government actually provides a program to hedging that kind of risk. However, our conclusion implemented, it is not that enough. It is not enough. The firms worry about other things like their production disruption and the quality disruption in their outcomes. So we need to provide other kind of approach, like developing some kind of new insurance, guaranteeing all the issues related with adopting low carbon technology. So that is I want to deliver.
Right.
Actually, I wrote a memo about the policy memo for the new presidential election.
Already.
A lot of memo. However, it was not adopted.
You should have a contact with me because I had a good sort of the communication channel with some of them. And then, especially under this government, as you may know, the international cooperation aspect of the climate change policy is not as strong as it's supposed to be. But I have been provided a sort of inputs to constantly to the governments. Anyway, I'm sorry that we took too much time.
But it was very valuable discussion that we can find the policy contribution for this study. So then we have to attract your attention.
So one of my idea is to educate the consulting firms and those in the business management department. Right? I think it might be necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really necessary.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's go back to our slide. So thanks to the discussion with Professor Zhang, you may know that there is a gap. So according to the IES policy database, more than 100 countries actually provided information and financial support. So if their programs were so successful, we don't need to think about the energy efficiency gap. However, we see the result. The level of energy efficiency improvement is not that enough to achieve our target. So we need to think about other kind of possibility and other kind of approaches. That is the motivation of our study. So we pay attention to the role of risk of breakdowns and operation disruption. So we conjecture that, okay, so we know that there could be a lot of barriers to improve energy efficiency, and economic and information factors are well investigated. However, there are other many factors. Okay, so in case of industrial sector, especially focusing on manufacturing sector, risk of breakdowns and operational disruption may be a key resource of the gap. However, supporting our argument, we need to provide some empirical evidence that can support our argument. So based on the identification of the research gap, we suggest the two research questions in our study. So the first question is that, is the energy efficiency gap larger for improvement activities targeting equipment with higher risk of production disruption? That was our first question. So it is very difficult to quantify the operational risk at the plant level or farm level, but we conjecture that, okay, the operational risk may be different by the equipment type. So we can think about the possibility. We thought about the possibility that we can categorize a lot of equipment into a limited number of types, like the equipment involving high operational risk and equipment involving low operational risk. So we hypothesized that in the hypothesis one, interventions targeting this equipment with higher risk of higher operational risk are less likely to be adopted. And our second question was, do such high risk equipment target activities exhibit actually greater energy saving potential? So we hypothesized that intervention targeting this equipment leading to greater energy saving. So combined with two hypotheses, that our main hypothesis was that, okay, some interventions, some efficiency measures targeting on equipment with higher operational risk are less likely to be adopted, even though they are superior in terms of economical property, like the payback period or saving rate. So that is these two things we wanted to show delivered throughout our study. Then you may wonder how we can measure the operational risk. So as I mentioned, the measurement of operational risk, there is actually no literature regarding the measurement of the operational risk. So, however, we pay attention to the possibility that, okay, we can categorize equipment into two types, direct production equipment and indirect production equipment. So DPE, direct production equipment, refers to equipment that is integral to production products and consumes process energy. So DPE is basically the equipment that directly touch with the materials during the production process. So example for DPE may be boilers, kilns in cement industry, and furnaces in iron industry, and mixers. That kind of blowers, that kind of equipment could be categorized into the DPE. So they support the core production process. However, you know that plant is eventually a building. So they consume same kind of energy like building, like heating, cooling, lighting. So equipment used in support processes consuming non-processed energy are defined as IPE, indirect production equipment. So based on the categorization between DPE and IPE, we conjecture that, okay, we can categorize equipment with higher operational risk and lower operational risk, and DPE involved with higher operational risk, and IPE involved with lower operational risk. That is our key idea. Then I want to introduce our empirical context. So although we can categorize the equipment at the plant level into two types, we need data. Luckily, we could access to the data. So we use the energy audit program data in Korea. So is there anyone who heard of energy audit program?
Probably not here.
Probably not. So, okay, I have to introduce, explain the energy audit program. So basically, energy audit program has been widely implemented across the country. The United States has implemented energy audit program. A lot of European countries also have implemented energy audit program, and even China has implemented energy audit program. So it is quite popular. Then we need to think about what is it. So basically, energy audit program, the government requires ODT or manufacturing plant to receive energy audit program on a regular basis. Then audit program select auditor outside the firm and receive some consultation about how to improve our firm's energy efficiency. The key characteristic of energy audit program is that firms or auditors do not have any obligation to adopt the recommended measure. So the goal of energy program, audit program, is to provide firms or sometimes buildings to a good information to improve energy efficiency. So it is basically an information disclosure project.
So Can I do understand. And then you don't have to answer my question now, but later, and you might have also a slide to talk about it. So question will be eventually, as I said, all the scientists, the economists say, we have a solution, and you are saying that it may not be implemented, right? So then policymakers say, okay, we understand, but that's where we are, right? And then what we need to do, especially in our lab, what we are trying to narrow the governance gap, right? So how you think the policy design needs to be can be developed and implemented in order to incorporate this idea into the policy work. In other words, how can we design the regulatory mechanism actually to bring this idea into the otherwise that the ministry will not listen to you. Yeah. I have my own idea while listening to you, but I want to hear your views. You don't have to answer on that question now, but later if you want, but that's my question.
So as I mentioned, the core characteristics of energy audit program is to give information, but not enforce their implementation. So basically, I don't think that we need to enforce the firms to adopt such recommendation because some of them are not attractive from the firm side. However, in many governments, many countries have implemented some other kind of financial support program that are connected to the energy audit program. Like, for example, okay, so the firm received a multiple recommendation from the energy audit program, and they want to implement some of them, but they have no money. That is a basic situation. In that cases, the government gives some financial aid to those firms to implement the measures recommended by energy audit program. So there is a basic connection between two types of policy measures.
Right. So I think that there could be different options, right? The first is that the Ministry of Environment may like very much regulation, right? And command control. The other one, leaving it purely in the market as it is. And then, but nothing may work, right?
Yeah.
So we need to design. And the question is how we design it, either based on the market approach or more like a regulatory approach. I think this, if you think that this is important even for Korea, under this new ministry, you might be asked a lot on how governments may need to do. So that's very critical question. I do prefer a market-based approach, but this is largely depends on what kind of cultural and institutional characteristics of that specific target country or community or society may have. That's my understanding. But
so in my personal opinion, I prefer market-based approach because we already have some strong regulatory mechanism like
too much
emission trading system, which will be strengthened in a couple of years later, and other kinds of regulation, and it is about fund level issue. So the government do not have enough information regarding each fund's situation, their equipment status, and their key outcomes, and how they supply their financial resources. The government lacks of such information at the firm situation. So in that case, if we turn our policy scheme regarding the energy efficiency into the regulation-based fund, that needs too much regulatory burden.
So I think that I have a solution of my own. That's why we need to develop the very market-friendly ESG disclosure standards. And then they may need to be integrated into the well-designed taxonomy. Right? I think these are two critical policies that I think about.
That's a very good idea. I haven't thought about that. However, the ESG report, the larger companies.
Oh, current one is
no.
I'm a 사회이사. So I have to participate in the mandatory education program every year to understand ESG. I never thought that all the speakers on the especially carbon matters, they don't know the basics.
Yeah.
So maybe our group needs to provide a sort of the solutions to that,
Okay.
right? Okay, that's you.
So let's continue.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I told you that the 30 minutes maybe.
Okay, so I want to deliver more about the energy audit program in Korea. So the Korean government has mandated since 2007, the Korean government has required to plant consuming more than 2,000 TOE per year to receive energy audit at least every 5 years. So basically, the funds who participate in emission trading system in Korea, they have to receive energy audit every 5 years since 2007. So this program has been operated about 17 years. So during 70 years, more than 10,000 plants were audited. And this audit program identified like annual saving about 10,000 kilo TOE. And actually, this program covered 70% of industrial energy consumption. So they identified annual saving potential. This savings did not realize, just potential. So thanks to this program, we successfully construct the data set with the help of Korea Energy Agency. By the way, Korea Energy Agency is in charge of operating Korea Energy Audit Program. So we could successfully construct a data set covering the 16 period from 2007 and 2022.
So this data is only for Korea, right?
Only for Korea, but the similar kind of Korea data can be accessed in the United States because they operate that kind of program. I don't know the full name, but IAC program. But the IAC program is an energy audit program, especially designed for small and medium-sized enterprise, and it is implemented on a voluntary basis, and it received the local university and local consulting firms have to discover the energy efficiency improvement opportunities for the local small and medium-sized enterprises. So the basic mechanism of energy audit program in United States and Korea is somewhat different because we kind of adopted some mandatory approach.
You said that you got a funding from the World Bank.
Yeah, World
And
Bank.
then why you are looking at the data of the developed countries?
They don't implement that kind of measures. So basically the World Bank interest is not digging the energy audit program itself. They want to derive some policy recommendation to improve the farm level energy efficiency. So
Developing countries or in general?
in developing countries.
Right.
So however, the reason we pay attention to the energy audit program is that we do not actually care about the energy audit program itself. However, it provides a couple of recommendation for funds, and it also provides information that among these measures, which measures were adopted and which measures were not adopted. So we thought that there was very valuable information that we can derive from those data sets. So digging by analyzing, by investigating this data set, we can find that, okay, at the empirical level, so we can find what kind of determinants and barriers that actually exist. They exist in terms of energy efficiency investment. So it only provides some empirical context at the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So in our data set, about the 3,500 manufacturing firms were included, and they audited like more than 7,000 audits. And through these 7,000 audits, like 52,000 activities are actually included. So we have the data set consisting of these 52,000 activities. So we can construct activity and audit and plant level information using the data. So at the activity level information, like such as information that included, like the description of proposed and the target equipment of this measure and their investment cost and expected energy saving and expected energy cost saving. So those kind of information are very valuable to us. And we can also identify the auditor, even though they are anonymized, and we can identify the audit year. And we could also identify the energy consumption at the audit year of the audit plant and energy cost of the audit plant at the audit year. And we also have plant level information, like also the plant level information was also anonymized. However, we can identify whether these firms are included in iron and steel sector or chemical sector or food sector, or we could identify whether these firms are categorized into large firms or small and medium enterprise and the public institutions. Some public institutions are included in our data set, like tobacco. They are actually public institution. However, they receive energy audit because they consume a lot of energy annually. So this table shows some descriptive statistics of the variables. So the key dependent variables are saved energy per energy efficiency measure and adapt status. So I want to explain the adapt status first. So basically, the adaptive variable was made in form of a binary variable. That means that if the recommended measure were adopted, it will have value of 1. And if this measure did not adopt it, then it will have 0 value. So the mean value shows that, okay, among 52,000 measures, about 35% were adopted. And that means that the rest were not adopted. And the saved energy is the amount of expected saved energy per each recommendation. And there are some other interesting variables, but I want to explain more about the direct production equipment. So earlier, I mentioned that we categorized a variety of equipment into simply 2 types: direct production equipment and indirect production equipment. And the energy audit program database contains the information regarding the target equipment in a very detailed level. So using this information, we categorize into them 2 types, DPE and IP. So basically, as a result, over 70% of the equipment were identified as DPE. And other kind of dependent variables are also developed. So before explaining the models and the estimation result, I want to show you some model-free evidence regarding the hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2. So let's recall our hypothesis. The hypothesis 1 is that the energy efficiency measure targeting the equipment with higher risk are less likely to be adopted. So regarding this hypothesis, in the panel B illustrates the model-free evidence for the hypothesis 1. So let's look at the panel B. In the panel B, the horizontal axis represents payment period. That means that the time that is required to recover its investment cost. And the vertical axis represents the likelihood of adoption. And the red line and dots illustrate the direct production equipment, and blue line and dots illustrate the indirect production equipment. So when we control the payment period, you can see that the red line is below the blue line. That means that if their economic feasibility is controlled, then the economic improvement targeting DPE are less likely to be adopted. So actually, the model-free evidence illustrated in panel B support our first hypothesis. And let's record our second hypothesis. Is there anyone who can tell the second hypothesis to me? Okay, I have to do that. The second hypothesis is that the energy efficiency measure targeting DPE or equipment with higher operational risk are superior in terms of economic property. So the model-free evidence illustrated in panel A actually support our second hypothesis that the vertical axis is required investment, and horizontal axis is a required investment, and vertical axis is saved energy. And you can see that when you control the required investment, that the measures targeting DPE shows greater energy saving compared to the measures targeting IPE. So combining these two results, we can conjecture that, okay, so the measures targeting DPE are less likely to be adopted. However, they are more attractive in terms of economic feasibility.
It might be too natural to say that. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's you are theorizing what should be done, right? In the even common sense, right? Yeah. So you can support sort of the quantified analysis, right? Yeah.
So it is, I think it is very natural result that everyone can imagine. However, they didn't show this kind of the supporting numbers.
That's important.
Yeah. So we developed, actually use some econometric models to test our hypothesis. So regarding the first hypothesis, we designed the such conditional logic model that the dependent variable is adoption status and the key independent variable is DPE. So if the coefficient, if the beta 1 is negatively estimated, then these estimates actually support our first hypothesis, right? And regarding the second hypothesis, we designed a very simple fixed effect regression, panel regression model. So the dependent variable is to save the energy for each form and for each measure. And the key independent variable is also DP. So if the beta 2 is positively estimated, then we support our second hypothesis. And we control all kinds of fixed effects that we can do, like the energy source fixed effect and the year fixed effect and plant fixed effect. So let me show the estimation result for the first hypothesis. In this case, the dependent variable was the likelihood of adoption for each measure. So in the first row shows that the coefficient estimate for direct production equipment, and all the coefficients were negatively estimated, and they are also very significant. So that shows that, okay, the equipment, the measurement targeting DPE are less likely to be adopted. And we also found very interesting things, adding some moderation effect. The second row shows the moderation effect of audit order. So the coefficient for the second variables were negatively estimated, indicating that the repeated audit actually decreased their adoption likelihood. So we can think about the implication from those results is that that the lifetime of the DPE are usually longer than the lifetime of IPE. So you can change the life easily. However, it is very difficult to change the boiler. So once firm experience the improvement in DPE, and it will take some time to take similar measures. So the second row, the result shown in the second row, provide that kind of implication. And the third row actually we try to investigate the auditor's work. So the energy audit program actually relies on auditors' capability, right? If auditors are good at give information regarding, or they are good at discovering new opportunities for energy efficiency improvement, their capability is very important, and selecting a good auditor is a very important issue.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you talked about energy auditing, and then is this energy auditing focusing on the efficiency rate, or does it have some sort of way to measure the carbon as well?
Yeah, there is a way to measure carbon.
So they are correlated.
They are correlated. However, the data set contains the data of the energy audit from 2007 and 2022. So, interestingly, we found some recommendation that even though these measures contribute to reduce energy consumption, but some measures actually increase the carbon emission.
So that raised my question, because all these energy efficiency measures ultimately needs to be reflected through the implementation process of NDC, right? NDC concerns carbon, right?
Yeah.
So would it be necessary for this energy efficiency measuring technique needs to be further developed, actually targeting the carbon in the end?
Yes, I totally agree to your opinion, because the energy audit program was operated focusing on energy. However, sometimes energy efficiency contradicts with carbon. The good example may be electrification.
Right.
So they contradict each other. So, however, before the initiation of new governance, the energy audit program was under the governance of Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy.
Right.
So there are many focus was not the carbon.
Yeah, right. That's my question though.
Yeah.
So that they may raise the sort of the misunderstanding among the different stakeholders. But as I understand, all these energy efficiency matters needs to be well coordinated with the macro level of the carbon policy. Otherwise, it cannot be mainstreamed in the end. Don't you think so?
I totally agree to your opinion. And recently, the many players who work for the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, they are confusing about their new goals. I recently talked to CATAP members, and they were trying to write down some kind of new proposal to the new ministry, and they try to identify the anticipated effect. However, all they know is describe the anticipated effect in terms of energy. So my recommendation to them was that now you have to change your blueprint. We have to focus on carbon, not the energy.
Right, exactly. Right. So this approach, the methodology makes sense before the Paris or before the Kyoto, before the UNFCCC. But we are living in the world of the Paris Agreement. So these things needs to be, coordinate, aligned with what we try to achieve through the Paris Agreement.
Actually, so if you are interested in this data set, you can rerun our analysis by changing the variables, focusing on carbon, like carbon reductions, or Also,
So
you can change it.
carbon energy efficiency matter then needs to be integrated in order to implement that idea in the market. Then you have to integrate it in a way of as a component of the disclosure policy for the government. Unfortunately, in Korea, everything is very regulatory. So anyway, through the climate and energy ministry, and then ultimately taxonomy is very, very important. I think that Korea has a lot of problems with having the efficient, sort of the taxonomy implementation schemes. So everything will go to the issues of the taxonomy. If we have that regulatory infrastructure, I think that then the market firms will naturally implement all these things.
Yeah, thank you for your valuable comment. So if I am at the position of writing the policy memo for the government, I have to consult with you.
we can work on it
Yeah.
next year with your school and then CSDLAP, and also we can bring some the governments, right?
I didn't think about that kind of possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. That's the way in which I have been trained. Actually. My lab that looks at this, quantified analysis, and then we are naturally thinking that how we can make it actually implemented, okay, efficiently. All the time that we have to think about what kind of policy measures can be used, right? As I always say, the Paris Agreement is all the time the starting point. That's why firms are doing very much, but they are not satisfied with the government climate policy because they are not aligned, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you allow me,
I gave you ideas, and then initiative that needs to be taken by you on your side and not on my side.
Yeah, that's very good. So let's go back to our slide. So in the third row, we test the auditor's capability. So auditor DP rate actually measures the auditor's capability, like their prior experience on successful recommendation on DP related equipment. So if they have successful experience a lot, that support them. Okay, the recommendation from the recommendation from the auditors with high capabilities actually increase the adoption likelihood. So that was the key result for the hypothesis 1. And let's move on to the result for hypothesis 2. So in hypothesis 2, we want to show that the measurement targeting DPE have greater economic feasibility. So each column, they have different dependent variables regarding the economic feasibility for each measurement, like how much energy saving is expected, how much cost saving is expected, and what is their payback period. That means we can recover our investment cost rapidly. And the last one is the saving rate. So all the estimate results support that, okay, the intervention targeting DPE shows they are superior in terms of economic feasibility.
So subsidy is necessary, right?
Subsidy is very necessary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we get that many firms who implemented the recommendation would receive subsidy from the government. So I asked the Korea Energy Agency if we access that kind of database, and the Korea Energy Agency, we have data that the subsidy that they actually implemented. However, many firms would receive other kind of subsidy from local government or other ministry. So there was a challenging, so we could not reflect the impact of the financial support which are connected to the energy audit program. That is actually our main weakness of the data set.
Well, then because I'm involved in the firm activities. Then in order to make it happen, right, the economy analysis doesn't necessarily, reflect the operation structure of the firms, but the firms operate based on their 대차대조표, right? Their, how do you call it in English, auditing scheme, right? So you have to actually make this idea aligned with that, right? That's why business management discipline, and they have no idea about what we have been talking about. And your group are less familiar with what they are doing. And then another point is that firms are very busy. Okay.
Right.
So unless they can set up a very efficient, sort of element to handle all these tests in the context of how they can demonstrate the successful outcome of the business, not necessarily, favoring the carbon, right? So in the sense that further work needs to be done. If you do that, I think you will quit your job and then maybe run a global consulting firm to provide all kinds of consulting services. Okay. And then at this time, relatively large size of the firms, we have a better chance to do so because many of them, especially in Korea, start to set up the ESG committee. But if you take a look at what they are doing, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, we start to have an institutional basis,
Yes.
right? And then they need to be mainstreamed in the firm level operation, right? They are, user standalone. But in my case, I understand everything. So I give some of the direct inputs in our board meeting. Okay. So, we need to mainstream that idea into the firm level operation. Okay. So these are important things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they are main reason for today's presentation. And actually, we produce a lot of estimation tables for the World Bank because they were highly interested in comparing the large companies and small and medium enterprises, and they were focused on the sectoral difference. However, those results are not presented in the today's presentation. However, if you are interested, I can send you the report.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then for the developing countries, World Bank, they used to emphasize the concept of rule of law, but these days law and development. Do you know the differences between these concepts? Rule of law is the concept where World Bank can transplant the U.S. Institution in developing countries. It was a complete failure. So you have to design an institution based on the local characteristics and features of that targeted developing countries. So when you provide implications out of this study to the World Bank for developing countries in the future, I do hope that you would include a sort of the bullet point saying that further study needs to be done how this idea can be transplanted and implemented in developing countries because they don't have any institutional capacity or infrastructure to incorporate this idea. They have no idea.
Yeah. So actually, as you pointed out, me and my co-workers are very weak to discovering that kinds of implications. So a lot of actually consultants in the World Bank try to find some valuable things from our estimation results. So these parts are contained to our consultant report, which will be published soon.
Yeah. All right.
So I want to finish today's presentation with saying some takeaways. So the key takeaways of today's presentation is that we find that although some energy efficiency measures targeting EPE, we can say that this equipment will showing the higher operational risk with greater energy saving, but they are adopted at a lower rate. So a targeted approach is needed to address this gap. So I didn't write down in this slide, but I think about the kind of possibility that develop some specialized insurance for guaranteeing the operational risk in terms of adopting low carbon technologies or something. The current insurance system only guarantees the risk in the energy savings. However, we need to expand the coverage level that will have firms eventually choose or adopt that kind of measures. And the second takeaway is the recommendation targeting DP, when made by auditors with prior experience in such proposals, have a higher likelihood of adoption. So this result actually underscore the need to cultivate auditors with experience in proposing some valuable measures. So the World Bank actually like this result. The role of auditor is very important, and cultivating qualified auditors are very important to promote energy efficiency in developed countries. So actually, we are trying to find other kind of implication from the auditor's capability using our data set.
All right, great. Thank you so much. About 20 years ago, as you may not know, that in China, the decarbonized power sector is very, very important. And that China is such a big country, so many of the implementations of the carbon policy have been done at the provincial level. In the sense that one of the critical province in China is Guangdong province, as you may know, right? And then about 10 years ago, there is a World Bank funded project done in order to improve the energy efficiency in boilers. Okay, and then now you know why they are working on. Okay, and then also there is another issue of how to deal with energy governance systems, because of China's main part is done by SOEs, state-owned enterprises, right? So how market approach can be done integrated into China, okay? And then another implication more than 20 years ago in Japan, when Japan hosted the Kyoto Protocol, then they wanted to show something to the world to demonstrate their leadership. So as you may know, that Japan is one of the very successful country in terms of energy efficiency, right? So Japan hired one consultant, and who actually changed Japanese policies on energy efficiency, right? And then so Japan achieved too much in advance and too much. That's why in climate real negotiation, they didn't have anything left to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That triggered the invention of the JCM and others, right? And these projects were done by one same person. There was my supervisor. Right?
You mentioned that.
Yeah. So energy efficiency, I think that the most critical thing is that even to my students, I usually say to my students that, do you know what? Energy security is different concept from climate security. Because traditional energy security, even in political science, the target is that the energy supply and demand. That's it. That stops there. There is no way, as you found here, no way to make a linkage with that issue with the climate goal. Okay, so in energy area, I think this is a very critical issue, that aligning or modifying traditional energy discourse into the context of the climate. Okay, still energy, but we need to add maybe or modify it more, right? But anyway, it was a wonderful presentations, and then I'm sure that some of you may have found a great interest. I know your background and what you are doing now. So I'd like to open the floor and then to take some questions and comments from the floor if you may have. I think the first one that needs to be designated should be Anne. Yeah, you are looking at me. She used to work at the Boston consulting firm in Germany.
Exactly, but not necessarily in the area of climate.
Yeah, but
it was more.
But you have a sense. Take any idea? I got a lot of ideas this morning, right?
I mean, the first thing that came to my mind were the abatement curves of the energy abatement curves, where I think in consulting, what we see a lot when we're trying to approach firms is that, especially like you said, energy saving mechanisms are usually not the most expensive one, but they can save so much money. So I think at least nowadays, it's one of the first things that consulting firms do recommend to like corporations, because it's one of the big levers. We can say that's, yeah. And I was just wondering about the data that you collected, because as we said, like, if companies, let's say, try to be more energy efficient, but then they also grow. So that means per piece, like let's say they're producing shoes, per shoe they need less energy, but overall they're using more energy. Is that reflected in the data as well?
You mean the self-consumption?
Yeah, like the overall energy consumption. Like even if you use more energy efficient energies, if you grow overall, it may look like you use
The
more.
energy consumption could increase even though they adopted the energy efficiency measure fully. So yeah, actually we have observed that kind of thing because our data set include the energy consumption at the ODD, not all the time series covering the total time series of the data set, but each firm experience in our data set at least 2 and 5 audits, at least 2 audits, more than 2 audits. So their energy consumption level has been changed during the sample period, regardless of their energy efficiency level. So, but we could not access the total time series covering the sample period. So the energy consumption variable plays as a control variable in this our analysis. So there is one limitation. We want to access the total time series of the energy consumption of the firm. However, yeah, we didn't get it.
To bring the more macro level of the changing environment at the international level, in the context of the U.S.-China competition, Chinese, if they would adopt this approach, it might not be helpful for them actually to address the issues inside China. So they might want to try to develop the different types of the technical standards. Okay, so that's something that can happen these days, even in the context of the UNFCCC negotiations. So their usual driver comes from One Belt, One Road policy, and now, which was introduced recently, Global Governance Initiative. So their whole focus is that, okay, we talk about the human rights, but Chinese versions are different, for instance, right? So that might be, because this is a very familiar, as I said, very good approach to address the issues in developed countries in the West, right? So who have been educated in the United States or UK or Europe. And then question is whether or not this approach, in addition to what I have commented on, can be implemented in China. Do you know what? Developing countries' standards will be largely influenced by the Chinese version. Right? So that's why I usually say that President Trump is killing himself because the US is losing its policy tool to influence over the potential future market that's developing countries. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Just one more follow-up question, because since you said that the auditors usually give recommendations and they're often not implemented, do these, like, on what level are those recommendations? Do they just recommend a specific, they detect where they could improve, or do they also come with like an implementation plan? Because I feel like sometimes firms get these reports and they're like, oh yeah, they told us to do this, but we don't really know how to. We don't have the personnel for the talent, etc.
So they usually provide the how to implement the recommended measures. However, the description of the implementation differs by auditors' capabilities. So actually, I reviewed the recommendation report in a peer review process. Some auditors are very good at to describe delivering how to improve the energy efficiency for each recommendation. However, some auditors are very bad at explaining. So it differs. It depends on the auditor's capability. So actually, the Korea Energy Agency, the great thing about the Korean Energy Agency is that they ranked auditors from S rank to E rank. So I try to actually use that kind of data. However, that kind of ranking or evaluation of the auditor firms only contains the data like 5 or 7 years. So I didn't use that. However, the kind of qualification for auditor can actually have to improve this program. That is one key contribution of our research, I think. Even though I do not directly use the ranking data, but we found that, okay, auditor's capability is very important.
All right. Kiara, don't you have anything? She has been working on the ESG related issue, no?
Yeah, maybe I was wondering if you would interpret the kind of low adoption of the high impact DPE as more as coordination failure or kind of of the ESG into the firms or something else.
So I didn't provide the evidence here, but the DP adoption rate was lower in SME, small and medium enterprise, which are very weak to ESG reporting. So in Korea, large companies try to follow the global trend in terms of ESG reporting. However, small and medium enterprise do not have any capabilities or resource to reporting their ESG record. So that could be connected. If we can access to if we identify the plant exactly, we don't know the plant information in detail. We only got the plant ID. So we cannot match the plant for actual farm. So if we can match the plant with the actual farm list, maybe the ESG, because the ESG thing can be linked to our data set, may provide the valuable things. However, the limitation in our data set, they provide the farm level information in the anonymized level. So we only thing we can get from the data set was, okay, whether this farm is ID1, ID2, ID3, and they are categorized into large or small and medium enterprise. However, regarding the ESG, and the SMEs are poor in adopting the DP related measures. So they could be connected to the ESG reporting issue.
All right. Any other?
If I may.
Mhm.
So we talked about how energy efficiency is having less attention as for the companies to invest. And also, I think at government level, we're also lacking the attention to have it embraced in the strategy explicitly. And because we talk about this NDC implementation and Paris Agreement has need to be a starting point of all these. And then we have at the global level the mandate to double the energy efficiency rate by 2030, which Korea also be part of it. And at the national level in Korea, I think we have foreseen challenges in terms of implementation as pertaining to decarbonizing the energy sector. Because, for example, government had just announced to phase out coal from the energy mix by 2040.
Yes,
and try to increase the renewables, especially offshore wind and the solars. So I see that more supply angle there are plans, and also there's a challenge in terms of phasing out the coal and fossil fuels, but not so much on the energy efficiency. And I don't know how current government at least is actually sort of considering energy efficiency as a good card to play with its policies to implement, to decarbonize. So that's my question, how energy efficiency at the strategic level will likely to play.
Okay, so in my personal opinion, the current government does not pay attention to energy efficiency. Yes. So in last 2 years ago, our government agreed to double the energy efficiency, and the IEA actually published a report regarding their agreement to doubling the energy efficiency this year in 2025. So in the report, they say that the energy efficiency improvement is still too slow to meet the target, and the sluggish improvement rate of industrial sector is the main reason to the that slows the energy efficiency improvement. So the international society still pay attention to the role of energy efficiency, I think, especially focusing on the IEA. And the decarbonizing the power sector is very, very important. However, without improving energy efficiency, such decarbonization may increase the system cost too much, right? We have to actually first reduce the amount of electricity that we need. Then we have to decarbonize the power generation source that produces the electricity. However, I think our government doesn't pay attention to energy efficiency.
I don't know why. Because I think it may be true with many developed world that from government's point of view, bringing the energy efficiency issues to the market and then generating the outcomes, it will require two technical works, and then you need to have a very much expertized, approach.
Yeah.
However, from government's point of view, if you focus on power, you only have very small number of the players.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's easy for you to create tangible implications to the those who have voters, in other words, right? In terms of political support.
Yeah.
I think so. That's why power sector is an easier target for the government. I think that's true in Korea. Also, under this administration comes from liberal, but usually liberal government supports the market. But in Korea, the other way goes around here. So liberals usually focus on the public sector related issues, right? So this one needs to be integrated. I think if we have to choose with conservatives in Korea, the problem, however, on the conservative side in Korea is that they don't want to upgrade this system of analysis in the context of the car. Okay, that's a very much hindrance in Korea.
Yes.
Right. So unless there is someone or some group which understand both sides, carbon and the market, and then integrated and created a new political message in Korea, I don't think it will happen. But under this new ministry, because they used to focus on the regulation, also their energy part has been just moved, but still may need some time to align with previous policy direction. It will take time, but this is the more cost effective, right? And then in Korea, I think we can bring a lot of good outcomes, but there are some policy interests.
Yeah, because I'm more interested in like a short-term need for such policies, because we have expectations in surging electricity demand.
Yes.
So the AI-driven growth strategy. So if we are phasing out coal and then increasing renewables, which will take at least 10 years, for example, for offshore wind, and not so much clear roadmap for nuclear. And I think energy efficiency could be the most cost-efficient.
One of the immediate, barrier to bring the energy efficiency issues on the table of the Korean policy is the group of the small number of the modeling people. They don't have access to this data, and then they don't use this data set into developing their NDC modeling. So they think that they are doing everything. I don't think so. Okay, they have a lot of limitations. That's one of the big hindrance in Korea.
And in terms of energy efficiency, it is very difficult to measure the policy outcome. So, as one of the students mentioned, that even though we do all the things to improve our energy efficiency, however, the energy consumption can increase because if we produce more. So that's why the governments are reluctant to promote aggressive actions on energy efficiency, because they could not sure that they could receive some kind of score regarding their policy during their term. So there is one governance barriers to promote energy efficiency measures. So however, we have to do all the things we can do to achieve the natural pathway. So yes.
The surprises of this is to be to title with that's important. I think that's what we will do under this administration, and then we will be preparing for something more right later. Okay, even now if possible. All right. Unless you have any other questions, I think that we can finish the today's scheduled seminar.